Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. We're following up today on a video I did a few days ago where I was talking about DeFi returns, kind of reducing your risk and increasing your return. We talked about yield farming, staking, lending as some of these tools. And some of the questions that I got were, hang on, you're talking about these insane returns. I'm going to mention like some ridiculous returns that I looked at yesterday. And where do these come from? Is this a Ponzi scheme, et cetera? So I'm going to go through today. I'm going to talk about yield farming returns, where they come from, what the scams are, what they aren't, et cetera, how these numbers kind of get worked out, and we're going to go from there. So before we do, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, nail the notification bell, subscribe. Really appreciate your support. And if you're interested at all in help with international structuring, how to lower your taxes, either personally or through your business, in terms of the strategy or in terms of the implementation, please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael Rosmer. There's a link in the description below. Or check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com, and send us a message through there. Okay, so what is yield farming about? Yield farming, I've kind of described this in some previous videos, but I'll really quickly go through, is related to what we call automated market making. And so the idea is if you have one cryptocurrency you want to swap to another one, normally there would have to be somebody to sell on the other side where you're willing to buy, right? And so because of the fact that that's not going to match, and if you want to do that in a decentralized way, then you need this liquidity pool to be in the middle, okay? And so when you're yield farming, what you're doing is you're contributing token pairs into the liquidity pool, which is facilitating people doing these transactions back and forth, okay? And so you end up with two fees. One is, if we look at Ethereum, say the gas fee that is paid, which is basically the fee to run the network, right? I've done a video on the staking rewards. But there's also a liquidity provider fee. And this is essentially the fee that goes to the people who put up the tokens that allow you to do those transactions back and forth, allow your transaction to happen virtually instantaneously and with minimal effort. Okay, so okay, great. We can start to understand the real value of yield farming, right? Which is if you were to go to a stock market, or actually let's even look at currencies, right? If you exchange your money from US dollars to euros, there's a fee that you pay, right? That is the fee that's being paid to the people who are the liquidity providers. How much money do you make off of that? Well, that's going to be based on a few different things, right? Number one, what is the transaction volume, right? Number two, how many people are providing liquidity? Number three is going to be external rewards, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second, because that's where you can get some of these insane numbers. So let's just consider that, say there's a lot of people who want to exchange. Just think about this, because what will sometimes happen is somebody says, whoa, this return is insane, this doesn't make any sense. But does it really make sense, right? Yesterday I had a call with a client, and I pulled up on Beefy Finance, the top one just to see, and the APY was 11 billion%, okay? Now somebody might be like, whoa, that's crazy, 11 billion%, like we're gonna be rich, etc. The problem is APY, as I mentioned before, is calculated based on compounding, and it's actually compounded per block. So you get like massive compounding that takes place. But you will have, for instance, like 5% a day is probably like 11 billion% a year, that kind of thing, right? Because basically if you just keep compounding, it goes up. And you'll never sustain that 5% a day. That 5% a day is going to go down pretty quickly for a few different reasons. And so in reality, you won't get that. But in the short term, you can be getting crazy numbers. I had clients who last summer were pulling like 14% a day on relatively significant amounts of money. So just nuts kind of things going on there, right? So okay, what takes place here? Well, let's just imagine that you're in a situation where you are one of the few liquidity providers, okay? And let's say that the liquidity provider fee, the fee to do that exchange, is 0.1%, okay? Well, for you to get 5% in a day basically means that your money has to get reused 50 times. A little bit less because there's compounding, but let's just call it approximately that, right? So if there's very few people who are providing that liquidity and there's a lot of transactions churning that can add up really fast, right? That's not an irrational thing to think of. If, on the other hand, there's many providers and there's few transactions, well, your money's probably not going to get used much at all. And so it might be, a very small amount. And what you're going to find is that if you're in a situation where someone is, where the returns are very high, a lot of people are going to dump money in, which is going to dilute the pool. And so everybody's returns are going to go down, which is going to reach some sort of equilibrium point. So when I looked at that 11 billion percent return example, there's probably two things at work. So one is probably that, right? The relationship here between the number of transactions and the amount of liquidity that's being provided is probably quite out of whack, right? And so that's part of the reason why, I don't know, if I was to go check today, it's probably down to, a few million percent, and within a few days it'll be down to, however many thousand percent, right? So it's not going to be, not be a long-lasting thing. The second reason why those returns could be insanely high is what will happen when you have a new token, a new liquidity pool, et cetera, is they may give you extra tokens in order to incentivize you to provide liquidity. In other words, at first, it's like, hey, listen, well, we need to get some liquidity into the market so people can exchange. We can create a market for this token, right? And so in order to incentivize that at first, rather than just, because look, you might not, it might not be high enough at first, right? There might not be enough transaction volume, people might not know enough about it, and things like this. So what are we going to do? We're going to give you reward tokens, okay? And so for staking, in addition to, or not staking, but like for providing your tokens into this liquidity pool, in addition to the fact that you're going to get these fees, we're also going to give you extra tokens. Now, if it turns out that those extra tokens are going up in value and the amount of extra tokens they're giving is high, then that could add up to a huge percent return relative to your overall number of tokens, right? So I don't know, just let's say, for example, that we were giving you, a 1% token reward. Now, you could never sustain this for a long time without this being, I'm saying per day in this example, without this being hugely inflationary to the token, right? That's entirely possible that you're going to have this hugely inflationary effect. And so that's another example of where, okay, what's going to happen? The rewards are very high, so a lot of people are going to buy in so they can take the tokens so they can put them in the liquidity pool so that they can turn around and earn the returns. When they're buying a lot, that's going to create demand for the token, which is going to drive the token price up, which is going to drive the APY up because the value of the tokens that are being given is going up, right? But what that's also going to mean is that on the flip side, all these people are going to end up selling out and cashing out when their returns drop, and they're also going to sell out their extra tokens that they've earned, which is going to crash the price, which is basically what happens in these like super extreme examples. If you're talking about something like I mentioned, I staked cake or put cake up. It was in a single asset pool, so a little bit different, but I did that at like 300% for like a few months, and so it was quite stable in that example. As shocking as that might sound, 300% was not considered to be a crazy return that would be sufficient to justify the crashing of the price and all these sorts of things when it came to crypto right now. But if you see like this 11 billion percent, that's the case. I mentioned in a previous video on Filda that you could put Filda into a DAO pool and earn, it was like 810% or something when I had put money in. I think it's down to like 610% now. It will go down, right? All of these things over time will drop and they will compress. But if you're on top of it, if you're paying attention to it and saying, okay, great, hey, listen, I'm holding this token anyway, I might as well make the most of it, you can put it in there and you can have some advantages. Now, there's other risks, right? You can have things like rug pulls, which can be facilitated by something called infinite minting, and you can have smart contract risk where there could be hacks. There's a bunch of different things that could go wrong in liquidity pools. So it's not to say that this is without risk in that regard. There's plenty of risks in that regard. But it just helps to explain to you a little bit of, okay, where are these returns coming from? And what does that mean? Some people might say, oh, well, those returns aren't sustainable. I think that's like the wrong attitude, because it doesn't matter whether something is sustainable or not if you can do well. Like when Tesla's stock price shot up last year, that wasn't sustainable. It's not going to keep going up at that same rate, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't hold it for during the time that it is going up, and then you can sell it at the other end. Same idea here, right? I have, like I said, Filda, going and doing its thing. It happened to have gone up a lot just as a token recently in general. But, that return, am I sitting here saying, hey, listen, because it's going to drop from 810% down to 100% over the next few months, that I shouldn't do it? No. I'm going to do it while it's good, and then when it's done, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to move it to somewhere else. So anyway, I hope that helps. I hope it gives an idea of like understanding, okay, here's yield farming, here's how yield farming works, here's where the money gets made in yield farming, and here's why this is rational, and here's why it's also not going to sustain at these insane levels. So hope that helps. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Again, if you have questions, put them in the comments below. If you have feedback for how to improve, please put it in the comments below. I'm going to look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.